What? What's up, my friends in the film fandom, wherever you may be and however you may be watching? Thank you so much for giving us this little bit of your time. And I know you're looking at your screen and wondering right now, does Jeremy's tongue game match that of the great Gene Simmons? Maybe by the end of the show, he'll let us know. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but my guess is probably. Anyway, welcome to all of you for coming to hang out with us. We're gonna one more 80s movie, and then September is gonna be all about the 90s, and actually probably the next month as well, as we start getting into some of the scary stuff. But before we get to that, let me introduce you to my great co-host, Lady Cora. Needed the night off tonight. She's got some stuff going on. That's cool. She'll be back hopefully on Thursday. I was talking to her a little bit ago. But for right now, I want to settle anyway for the demon himself, my hetero life mate, Jeremy. What's up, brother?
Do I look like I want to rock and roll every night, party every day? I hope so.
I was really hoping you were to go full Luther. I was hoping you were to get like the shirt, the tie, like the slick back hair, and just kind of like just stare broodingly at the camera the whole night. That would have been cool too. But you know, you can never go wrong with this. You can never go wrong with this. This makeup,
especially
scheme never fails.
Especially since I did this in like 20 minutes. But I was, I mean, hey, it's getting to be spooky season, so I mean, I might as well start doing the makeup stuff. And if anyone didn't know, this was directed by Michael Crichton, who also made the book of this gem right here. So we're doing all the deep cuts today.
A lot of Easter eggs in Jeremy's cosplay today. And then, of course, my hetero life mate again, the chef from the Lone Star State, our man Tex. What's up, brother?
Well, you know, you can rock and roll and not party every day, but you must kneel before the God of Thunder here. I'm just saying. And just for good measure, don't pull the trigger on my love gun either, because it's potent. So you might need to watch out. So, you know, watch out.
If you think about it, two of the sexiest guys in the 80s are in this movie. You got Tom Selleck and you got Gene Simmons.
I'm pretty sure Tom Selleck's mustache alone was like fuel for the ladies of that generation. So, you know,
that's where he gets all his power from. Yeah.
He is directly responsible for many people being birthed because their moms were horny after seeing him. So, you know, it is what it is.
And remember, there was also like 6 or 7 seasons of Magnum PI to keep women kind of going too. So
right,
yeah, there's a whole other baby boom going on. But we'll talk about this movie that he was in right now. The movie we're talking about is I clicked all the wrong pictures. Wow, that was fun. It was Runaway. It's a 1984 American science fiction action film written and directed by Michael Crichton, starring Tom Selleck, Gene Simmons, Cynthia Rhodes, and Kirstie. Selleck portrays a police officer assigned to track down dangerous robots, while Simmons is a scientist who hopes to profit from his manipulation of robots. The film was a box office disappointment, making only $6.7 million against a budget of about $8 million, and received mixed reviews. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a rating of 48% based on reviews from 23 critics, with reviews being a mix of praise for the acting of the 3 main leads and contrite for the campy nature of the story and Crichton's inability to make the human characters as interesting as the technology in the movie. At the movies, gave Runaway 2 thumbs down. Roger Ebert thought that Selleck and Simmons gave good performances, but the film quickly became mired and cliche, while Gene Siskel thought the core premise was intriguing, but the film was poorly executed. That's fair enough. The great Neil Gaiman actually reviewed Runaway for Imagine magazine and stated that, quote, the race to outwit the cybernetic psycho is gripping stuff, mostly, with a terrifying showdown on top an unfinished skyscraper. And as the hero cop with no head for heights, Selleck is fine. In between, he spends too much time just being a heartthrob. I can't really knock any of those critiques, especially the one from Neil Gaiman. I think he says it best. But I'll go to you first, Jeremy. Just kind of a quick paragraph, random thoughts of this movie before we get into the deep stuff.
I had never actually seen this movie before, but if it's anything to go off of, we were trying to eat dinner and I got through. We had 2 little things, not like they were lettuce wrapped, like whatever's. I ate one and I had trouble eating the second one because I was actually so engrossed in the movie and I don't even know why. I was kind of mad that I realized, oh my God, why am I just like, oh, it's gonna happen? Oh my God, oh shit, you know. Tom Selleck's Tom Selleck, you know. I think that speaks for itself. I mean, I was kind of surprised by Gene Simmons. Honestly, he kind of just almost kind of Bond villain level of like bad guy, like just kind of typical, just bad, kind of for the sake of being bad, I guess. It was a fun movie, and yeah, the technology angle was kind of interesting. It's like a kind of like a precursor to like the movie I, Robot or something like Terminator, which I think came out the same year, which is kind of funny. Or no, that was earlier than that, wasn't it?
Right about the same time, actually.
Yeah, okay, it was about the same time. And interestingly enough, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but some of the technologies in this movie are actually like real now, which is kind of funny when like 80s movies talk about the distant future and they get some of these wild technologies that end up actually being true. So it's kind of funny how some of them they actually get right. And there was a lot more in this than I expected. It was a fun movie.
Tex, how about you? While you start to prepare your Hassenpfeffer, give me a quick paragraph, something, just give me your quick thoughts on Runaway.
Yeah, I had thought I had never seen this before, but about 10 minutes into watching it, I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this. And I started coming back and remembering I didn't see this in theater. I saw this, Joe Bob Briggs had showed this on Monster Vision on TNT back in the day. This is one of those movies that was always on like TNT and TBS kind of things.
Yeah,
it's just been forever.
Before streaming, this is exactly the kind of movie they'd have put on TBS like on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, because I'm like, wait a minute, this seems familiar. I couldn't place it. Then I started coming back, and I mean, obviously, Joe Bob Briggs is basically my idol. I'm like, I think he showed this movie because I remember seeing it. But yeah, no, it's a fun watch. It's of course, I mean, we'll get into plot later, but it's a kind of a formulaic movie, but it works. It's an 80s action movie that you don't have to think real hard about. You just, turn your brain off and have your popcorn and have some fun. So yeah, it's a good film.
Yeah, it is one of the because the 80s was so overrun just with product. I mean, the quantity of product in the 80s was definitely excessive. You ended up getting a lot of these movies that I think because there were so many other bangers that kind of came out around the same time, they kind of get lost in the fray. This is one of them that's became kind of a cult movie is because of it. Now, is it a great movie? No. As I was watching it again, I actually watched it twice in the span of a couple of days. As I was watching it the second time, I was kind of thinking about my views of the film, and I was like, I like this movie because it's one of the movies from my childhood, so I have this kind of this attachment to it for that. But at the same time, I was looking at it from a more critical eye, and I was like, I get why this movie probably isn't one of the ones that lasted, but it hasn't really stood the test of time, but it does have just enough in it to really get somebody kind of hooked on it. There is anything tech is interesting, even looking back on it, the tech that was considered so revolutionary and outlandish and crazy and no way it could be real that we look at now and we're like, we've had that for like 30 years now. Even looking back on it, it's kind of interesting to see how people viewed what the future was going to look like, because this movie does take place a few years in the future from when it actually came out. But yeah, it's really, I mean, it's got Tom Selleck, who by himself was great. It's got Cynthia Rhodes, who in the 80s, I mean, she was in all kinds of bangers. I mean, she was one of the heartthrobs of the 80s. And then you had
Wasn't she in Flashdance?
She was in Flashdance, yes. But yeah, it's one of those movies that has a lot to like. Not a great movie, but it's kind of hung around there. We talked about it with Killer Clowns from Outer Space, how it was made a long time ago, but it's always kind of been out there somewhere. It's always one of those ones that people tend to find relatively easily when they're not looking for it. I think this has been one of those movies for a long time. And like I said, this is one of the movies that used to get regular play on like TBS or TNT, or, on the weekends they didn't want to really put anything important out there. They just want to throw these movies out there to watch. And you would end up watching this movie. This is one of the movies that you would record off TBS just to have in your collection on VHS that you would record for the TV. It was one of those movies for the longest time. But yeah, I was actually fortunate enough to come across this, a year or two ago on streaming, and I was like, oh, now that I know that it's out there, I'll be able to enjoy it a little bit. But let's get to talk about the movie. We'll start with Michael Crichton as a director. Obviously, he's not very well known for directing. He's obviously known for his writing more than anything else. But he did direct a couple of movies. He directed The Great Train Robbery from the book that he wrote, of course, back in 1978. He also directed Westworld back in 1973, and both those have they've had staying powers over the years. Westworld for like its sci-fi approach, and The Great Train Robbery just because it was actually a really good movie. We'll get into his writing in a second, but I mean, as a director, he didn't do a whole lot, but he put out a couple of really good things. Tex, do you think he actually made the grade as a director?
I didn't even know he was a director till watching this movie for this review purpose. That's what I was just telling Jeremy before we went live. I saw Crichton. I'm like, I know that name. I couldn't place it. And I gave it a Google. I'm like, oh shit, he wrote Jurassic Park. I didn't know the guy wrote movies. I just thought he did books and stuff. And apparently he was a doctor or something. This guy's a very celebrated person. He's done a lot in his life. But I had no idea he was a film director. But yeah, I thought he did well for this movie. It was serviceable plot, pretty easy to execute, to be honest with you. But I mean, for the purposes of what the story was, I think he more than delivered on this. You know what I mean? No real complaints about it. It works.
Yeah, Jeremy, how about you? I mean, obviously you got the Jurassic Park shirt on. We have the connection that we have to Brooding Gamer. He's obviously got reasons to be a big fan of Michael Crichton. What did you think of Michael Crichton as a director? Did the couple of movies that he did that have kind of hung around in the zeitgeist, have they been good enough to where you'd say that it would have been nice to have seen him step in the director's chair a little more often?
With Tex, I also did not know that he was a director. So when this was suggested that we watch this, and it said, when I was looking it up, and it said Michael Crichton, I was like, you mean the guy who made Jurassic Park? Not the movie, but made the book? Really? I'm like, why didn't you direct Jurassic Park then? The hell? I mean, I'm not mad that Spielberg made it. However, I don't know. It's like, I guess I was engrossed in this movie enough. I mean, maybe I can't say I've ever directed an actual movie before, so I don't know what it's like. But just from this, I mean, I'm not sure if I even know what else he's done, but just from this movie alone, I mean, you had me.
Yeah. As a director, he's not bad. I mean, obviously the guy had been around entertainment for a while. Tex, he was actually, I think, pre-med at one point, and then decided to go another route and do something else. I want to say like engineering, and then kind of stumbled into writing, and then writing ended up becoming his thing. I guess writing was one of his passions for a long time, even though he had gone to school for some other things. He just ended up kind of like falling back on writing, and then ended up having the career that he had.
I mean, I've never went past anything of his connection to Jurassic Park. I mean, obviously, I don't know anybody who doesn't like Jurassic Park. I think that's one of those universal franchises that everybody, you at least like the first one. And I never looked into the guy. I never really, I guess, cared to or whatever. But I kind of dug through some of his history and whatever. And I mean, Michael Crichton, he was a busy guy. I mean, I don't know if he's still alive or not. But
no, he actually passed away several years ago. He had
I think he's
leukemia or some kind of cancer, I think.
Yeah.
No, he was like I said, he was the guy had some ambition. Credit to him just for that alone. But
yeah, the things that he directed other than this movie were The Great Train Robbery and Westworld. He also directed a couple of like individual episodes of a couple of TV shows. But I mean, as a writer, he wrote the novel The Andromeda Strain, which became a movie. He wrote the novel Westworld, which became a movie. He wrote The Great Train Robbery, both the novel and the screenplay. He wrote the novel and the screenplay for Rising Sun, the movie with Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes back in the early 90s, I believe. He wrote the novel. He wrote the novel for Congo, which ended up becoming a movie. He also was one of the writers on the film Twister, Jeremy. I mean, we'll be talking about that one eventually. We're end up getting the second film made. Obviously, Jurassic Park. Yeah, obviously, Jurassic Park and The Lost World were books that were written by him. He also had a hand in the script. He also wrote the novel that was the basis for the movie Sphere with Dustin Hoffman and some other people, stuff like that. Not a great movie, but still an interesting one to watch. He also was one of the big writers and the showrunners on ER because of his pre-med stuff and his interest in the medical arts. He was one of the showrunners on ER for many, many years. I think it was 2008 or something like that when he passed away. He was undergoing chemo for cancer or something like that, and that kind of thing happens. But yeah, I mean his creativity is certainly on display here. It's kind of, I don't know how much of the Dan Brown stuff you guys have read, the Robert Langdon books, like the movies like the Da Vinci Code and all that. He wrote all those books. From what I was reading about him, he actually was kind of like he kind of was into it the way Dan Brown is into that stuff. As he would go to different places around the world and research and like learn stuff, and then would start writing and would start figuring out how this would all fit into this intricate story and stuff like that. So yeah, and I gotta respect that. I'm actually in the process of reading the latest Dan Brown book with Robert Langdon. But
is this maybe the reason why the Jurassic Park books are like extremely graphic? Because this guy is like, oh well, this is how a dinosaur would tear a person apart. It's like, oh, okay, thanks.
Right.
The book's pretty brutal if you ever want to dive into that. You think the movie's not bad. It's dinosaurs, but I mean, if it had been like the book, there'd be some R-rated shit going on with some dinosaurs. It's pretty intense. It's intense.
Yeah.
Well, in the second movie, that opening scene on the island where the girl gets attacked by the compies, that's actually from the first book, as I recall. And I've only read the first book, Jurassic Park. I haven't read Lost World, but I do recall that the little girl. It says in the movie the little girl was attacked and she's going to be fine, but in the book the girl actually dies. The girl actually dies. She gets eaten up by these dinosaurs. They find her in the woods. Well, yeah, pretty.
Yeah, and doesn't like I think John Hammond he's kind of cowardly and he tries to hide or some shit and they end up killing him too. Like the dinosaurs.
I think Hammond gets eaten by a dinosaur too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets like cornered or some shit. He ends up being a coward in the end, and they kill him too. I'm like, Jesus, man, this. Whew. I think Ian Malcolm, died too or something. I thought.
I forget. Oh, all I know is I'm glad Ian Malcolm lived.
I'm like you don't get rid of Goldblum. Come on now, you know about
that. Yeah, no doubt. But let's take a minute to talk about the cast. I mean, obviously the three main leads here are Tom Selleck, Cynthia Rhodes, and Gene Simmons. Tom Selleck, I mean, at this point, he actually shot this film in between, I want to say, seasons 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 or something like that, early on in Magnum PI. So this was one of his first trips into big screen acting. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Tom Selleck already kind of a big star. Cynthia Rhodes becoming a big star, and Gene Simmons already a big star for the last decade or so at this point through Kiss. They all carried the movie pretty well. Sure, there are some other people that are in the movie that are pretty good, but I mean, these are the three main leads. Jeremy, what do you think of the cast, and who really stood out for you?
First of all, you said it wrong. It's Kiss. Sorry. Yeah, again, I don't know. Gene Simmons makes a really good, creepy bad guy. I don't know. I just found him a lot of fun. And come on, he's got a damn gun that like shoots rocket-propelled bullets the size of like fucking 50 cals. Like it goes around corners and like targets anyone he wants. I mean, that's the cool shit. Like
those are tracer rounds. Those things can stop midair and pull a Huey and go the other way. I need a bunch of those. I got plans. I need those.
I was like, of all the technology in this movie that, I mean, ended up ultimately being a real thing, I was like, now imagine if we had this shit. I mean, you see a cop dissect one of those bullets in half, and I'm like, oh my God, this thing's got circuitry and like rockets, and it's got a detonation device in it. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, imagine if we had that shit. Oh my God. I mean, in the words of Jack Nicholson, I mean, where does he get those wonderful toys?
I know a lot of people that wouldn't leave the house if I had some bullets like this.
Yeah, there it is.
And I don't think it would matter much because this bullet would probably find them anyway.
Yeah, you get hit with one of those. It's gonna ruin your day, especially if it doesn't go off, and then you have to dig it out of your partner's arm.
Well, technically, if you get hit in the back with it, just some like black cats go off and a few little sparklers go off. That's technically all that actually happened. But
you better hope it don't hit the wrong part of the spine. I mean, you paralyzed and this shit explodes. And he had those cool little spiders, man. Those spiders were like little face huggers, and then they just like stick you right in the neck with like a fucking needle full.
That's what I thought. That's what I'm like. Somebody watched Alien, like right before they, did the.
I mean, that was
the design for this.
That was 79, right? So that's not too long before that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
like
Aliens came out in the early 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. But
so I say Gene Simmons,
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that Gene Simmons kind of runs away with this movie a little bit, whether he expected to or not. But
Right.
Tex, how about you? What do you think of the cast, and who jumped out at you, and why was it Gene Simmons?
Well,
He
the
jumped
cast
out at you
works.
right at the
This
end,
is-
like a fucking villain out of Scream. He's just like, and dies again. I'm like, what's
there's
that?
Gene Simmons is the man in this movie. If you ever need to look up stereotypical '80s bad guy who there's really nothing below the surface except for a glaring stare, very to little to no plot development. You just know they're the evil guy because they're always glaring at the screen menacingly. Like Gene Simmons has one face for this entire movie. Like that's all he had to worry about. And but it works. Like I said, you could have put Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal, Sylvester Stallone, or any other '80s action hero in this, and he would have fit perfectly. He was the prototypical '80s villain, and it works. I mean, you can't go wrong with Tom Selleck. I've never been a fan of Kirstie Alley. She could have been left out of this movie, and I wouldn't have cared, whatever.
Oh,
But I mean, obviously, I went with the God of Thunder naming for this episode, so I got to go with my boy, the demon himself, Gene Simmons. I love Kiss. I'm a proud member of the Kiss Army for pretty much my entire life, so it's all good. So
Yeah, like I said, Gene Simmons does kind of steal this movie in a whole lot of ways. But one of the people I'll point out is I'll point out Cynthia Rhodes. I mean, she was for a while one of the hottest women in Hollywood. She did Flashdance. She did this. She did Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta, the sequel to Staying Alive. She did Dirty Dancing. She was the blonde girl in Dirty Dancing, and then I think she did one movie like in 1990 or something like that, and then she decided just to quit acting for reasons from what I've read, she just wanted to stay at home and be a mom, and I'm like, I totally respect that, but man, you went from being one of the hottest commodities in Hollywood to just like, yeah, I'm gonna stay home. I don't know.
Moranis did the same thing, man. His wife passed.
True.
He said, I don't want my kids to grow up by themselves. So I'm like, you were the dude in all the comedies in the 80s and in the early 90s, man. But I can respect that.
Even farther back than in the 70s, all the stuff in Canada with CCTV. But yeah, like I said, obviously Tom Selleck, big heartthrob in the early mid 80s, Magnum PI. He was kind of like on every, if you were of a certain age at that point, then you definitely had his poster on your wall. But Cynthia Nixon is the one that, I mean, like I said, she was one of the she was kind of like Phoebe Cates for a while. She was like the super hot girl that she's not a bad actress. I mean, all the movies that I named, I've seen her in, and she's not bad in those movies at all. It's just for whatever reason she just got tired of Hollywood. Maybe she understood that Hollywood's kind of a shitty place anyway, and it's probably not the best place for someone. But yeah, she is the one that sticks out for me, other than Gene Simmons, who was just a fantastic bad guy. I mean, actually, I think who was it? Yeah, BJ asked the question: did Gene Simmons do any of their movies? He actually did a couple. Technically speaking, this is not Gene Simmons' first film. He actually was in a movie. Let me make sure I'm reading this the right way.
I think he was in a horror.
Kiss.
I think he was in Trick or Treat. There was a scary film from the '80s. I believe he was in Trick or Treat. You can fact check that, Frank.
He did a couple of films. I know before this, he actually did a movie with Kiss that was, for whatever reason, I forget what it was. It was technically a theatrical release in Europe. It wasn't released here in the United States. So that was technically his first theatrical, whatever, filmography. Let me go. Let's see. Kiss Meets the Phantom at the Park. That's the name of it. It came out in 1978. It was released, let's see. It was produced by Hanna-Barbera Productions, if that tells you it was kind of more of a kids thing. The movie's plot revolves around Kiss, who uses their superpowers to battle an evil inventor to save a California amusement park. Yeah.
Family Guy's not too far off. They could have made Kiss Save Santa, and that would have just totally floated. That would have been awesome.
I may have to find that one now. But
do you count?
Sounds like fun.
Do you count like Kiss meets Scooby Doo and Kiss meets the California Raisins and whatnot? Do you count that?
The TV that's stuff I don't really count. I mean, that's TV. Okay. But I mean, he's been in some stuff. He was in that. Then he was in this movie. He played in Never Too Young to Die in 1986. Never heard of it. He played in Trick or Treat in 1986.
So he did, yeah.
He played in Wanted Dead or Alive in '87. It's a
Okay.
Rucker Hauer movie. I should try to find that one. He had a cameo as himself with the rest of the band in Detroit Rock City in 1999.
Yeah.
Let's see. He was in The New Guy. He was the Reverend. I do remember that movie. I don't remember seeing it though. A movie called Extract, which I remember coming up. I've never heard of. He was in a couple of documentaries. One about Rush. One about some other music stuff. He was in the Scooby-Doo and Kiss Rock and Roll Mystery in 2015. So
he
we got
was.
that. He plays himself in a lot of stuff, a lot of documentaries, a lot of cameos. TV.
Gene Simmons is himself.
Yeah, himself. He
that.
played an episode of Miami Vice in 1985. He was in an episode of The Hitchhiker. Mad TV, played himself, animated himself. King of the Hill, he actually voiced an episode, Jesse in an episode.
Huh.
He was in a couple episodes.
I don't remember that.
He was in a couple episodes of the TV show Third Watch. I didn't know that.
Okay.
Family Guy, obviously.
Family Guy. He was in Family Guy.
And then,
Damn it.
Yeah, the problem with his TV stuff is like every time he was on like a talk show pitching his show or an album or something, he shows it on here.
Right.
So himself. So yeah.
Keep rocking and rolling, man.
He actually was on Jeopardy at one point. It's cool.
Hey.
But so yeah, I mean he's been on camera plenty before and made a lot of films. I mean, but mostly just playing himself and stuff. I mean, he was in a movie in '89 called Red Surf, which they don't even have an article on here for it, so I have no idea what it is. But yeah, I mean, so Gene Simmons, look, he made it very clear that he was always kind of interested in acting. But yeah, go look for him, I guess. I mean, I don't know where you would find any of this other stuff that he was in. I mean, I have to go look for them individually, but you know. But yeah, Gene Simmons, he does kind of run away with this movie. And what's sad is I couldn't even get a very good picture of like that dark brooding stare where he's like looking kind of like over his glasses and like giving you that really menacing stare. I couldn't even get a good screenshot of that because those scenes were so fast. It was really, really difficult. But yeah, he's really fucking good in this movie. Now let's talk a little bit about the plot. I mean, again, 1984, technology was growing a lot, but nobody really knew what it was about, what it was going to do, what it was going to be. Nobody had any clue. Jeremy, what do you think of just using the upcoming tech boom that was kind of in its infancy at the time and making that kind of the MacGuffin for all this?
There's a lot of movies that kind of do that, especially in the 80s. I mean, like my first thought was like Back to the Future Part 2. And even then, they knew there. I think Zemeckis, there was like in an interview or something, they were on set, and he was like, "I know we're gonna get this wrong, but like, let's just have fun with it. Like, who cares? Like, it's in this universe, and this is just it's time travel. Who cares?" But I always thought that's kind of interesting. I mean, any movie that even you go back to like the 50s, 60s. I mean, basically since the end of World War II, man, like when technology just took the hell off all the way up through even, the 90s, you get these movies that have stuff like this, like that are kind of cautionary tales. Like I said, Terminator being another example. It's just kind of fun to just have fun with like so-called near future tech. You think of something like, it's a little more dystopian, but stuff like, not Running Man, the other Schwarzenegger one, where it's in his head.
Total Recall.
Total Recall.
Stuff like that, where it's like, oh, you can just go on a virtual vacation. There you go. Goodbye. Is it real? Did it happen? I don't know. Mars is under attack. Johnny Five's alive. I don't know. At least Johnny Five didn't short circuit in this movie. Gotcha.
Oh, he would have been perfect in this movie, though. I did think about that.
Johnny Five would have been a
great
funny cameo.
Great crossover.
That would be great. Oh no, he short circuited. Like look at the camera. Yeah. I guess now it's kind of a time I can mention that. Like when Tom Selleck is yelling about the floater, get the floater in there. And then when I saw it, I'm like, you mean the drone, Tom? That's a drone. I mean, I'm looking at 1984 supposed future tech in 2023, and I'm like, that's a drone, dude. We have that. Okay. And he's like, oh, check the door video. I'm like, you mean the Ring doorbell?
Camera.
I was like, oh my God, this is creepy. And she's sitting there with like her little pad. It looks like a cell phone. I was like, oh my god, there's so much technology in this movie that they actually got right. And even though somebody
they got drones, tablets, the Ring cameras. I mean, so much of this stuff. I mean, there's.
They did like FaceTime. They like that weird FaceTime every once in a while.
Yeah.
Like the Kirstie Alley, or they're talking to Gene Simmons on the roof doing his best like Hans Gruber impersonation. I was like, dude. The one guy that had ridiculous brick 80s phone though was pretty awesome. I was like, yeah, okay, we still have that.
Well,
but, you know,
the one technology that they didn't get was cell phones. That's the one thing that they didn't really nail down as much. They got everything else.
I saw her pull something out like up to her ear, something like flat, like it looked real flat and thin. She went like this and then like put it in her like vest or something. I was like, wait a minute, because then she's like pulling it like this, and she's like looking at it like for the robot they were looking up. I was like, it's kind of there. I don't know. I guess what was her name? Lois was like the maid in the house.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking like Rosie the robot from like the Jetsons. That's kind of what I was thinking. She's got all the sass, but she kind of reminded me of like a Siri or even like a Alexa or something. But it's hitting it on the nose. As goofy as you want to. You can look at these movies and think it's kind of goofy, but I'm like, yeah, but they're kind of right.
Let's see. What year did Rocky 4 come out? I can't remember.
Oh, God.
No idea.
Well,
you're talking about all the crap they had on Dolph Lundgren?
Rocky 4
No.
88?
If you take the robot from Rocky 4, it would fit in this movie. Like, that's another thought that popped into my head.
Like when he's working out and shit? Yeah. That's what I mean.
No, I'm talking about the robot that Polly has or whatever. It's his
Rocky 4 came out in 1985.
Ooh.
Okay, so it was a year after this. Okay, so they were probably making that the same time this was coming out. But I'm like, that robot from Rocky 4 would fit perfect in this movie. Like, I love the robot in this movie is to me, it looked like a microwave on wheels. It's kind of what it looked like. I mean, it was just this gigantic, rectangular thing rolling around. Basically, it's pretty much his wife. Like he even talks about it like a wife whenever he meets the new partner. Like it's kind of funny how how he does with it. But the technology it was definitely cool.
It kind of reminded me too. Well.
No, go ahead.
It also gave me vibes of I'm going to go the video game angle this time. There's a robot in Fallout that I think it's modeled off after a Mr. Gutsy, but it's like they tried to program him to because there was one specifically named Curie after Madame Curie to like do surgeries on people and shit. And there was one that was like programmed to do that, and it kind of doesn't really work, and it starts to kill people. So it kind of gave me that same vibe where I'm like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't give him a scalpel because he's not programmed to do shit like that. And we may get demonetized for it, but there is a robot called Fisto, and I'll let your mind run wild with that. Do not turn your back on that robot.
Yeah, Casey's already bought one.
They're so
hey man. That robot's scary because he's malfunctioning and he just knows his prime directive. And like I said, don't turn your back on him.
They push the robot so hard in this movie, they even eat C-3PO cereal. Go back to the shot where what star of the movie? Tom
Selleck?
Yeah, Tom
Selleck. Sorry, I had a brain fart.
Jesus, man.
It's been a long day, don't act. That's all I got to say.
I know. It's been hot.
Whenever Tom Selleck goes into his kitchen, if you look on the counter, there's a box of C-3PO cereal in the background behind him. That's like, the top is opened or whatever. So they even went as far. I don't know if they had to get permission from Star Wars or whatever, or George Lucas, but they even had that kind of Easter egg for the robotic feature. You know what I mean? So they really pushed the technology.
I mean, Chip and Dale were dressed up like Indiana Jones and Magnum P.I. at one point. I mean, Indiana Jones is owned by George Lucas, so maybe there's some kind of deep cut there. I don't know.
Well, technology wise, whenever Gene Simmons is firing his gun, I love how it looks like a laser gun, but it sounds like a regular firearm. Did y'all notice that? They kind of blended those two technologies together a little bit. I'm like, y'all are like halfway playing with some Blade Runner, Star Wars, kind of stuff, but in modern technology kind of thing.
Almost like Firefly, because like some of those guns, they look like normal guns, but they sound like they shoot laser rounds or vice versa.
Right.
And it's kind of cool. I love when they do shit.
Yeah, it was. See, it's not like obviously they have that tracer bullet that Gene Simmons fires out of his pistol. Yes. How does that even? I mean, obviously they're not going to go into this on a deeper level in the movie. It's only a 90-minute movie. How, like the whole casing fires out? It doesn't, come apart. What's the firing assembly here? I need the mechanics of that pistol to see how that works. If
Texas is gonna look at that cutaway of it and be like, okay, this is how that works.
Right. Give me like a 2-minute scene of, here's how the firing mechanism, here's the firing pin, the blah blah blah, and the shit. Like, just go gun nerd for me for a minute. Just explain how this works, because I mean, for it to fire out that whole entire thing, there has to be some sort of exploding mechanism in there. That's one thing that ever since I've watched it, I'm like, how does that work? I just, I'm never going to get that answer, but it is what it is.
No, because you don't have the templates. That's why you're not going to get the answer.
That's why you don't know.
Right.
Exactly.
Actually, I've seen. I watch a couple of gun channels on YouTube. One obviously is Demolition Ranch. The other one is Tough Flater Mouse. I don't know if you guys ever watched them or not. They actually, both of them, more recently, Demolition Ranch has had a gun where the projectiles are not bullets that are fired from a casing. They're actually little mini rockets, not too dissimilar. I'll put the picture back up real quick so you guys kind of get an idea what I'm talking about. Yeah. Not too dissimilar from this, but basically what it was a prototype gun. They only made so many of them. They were never mass produced. They were never used like in combat. But basically the projectile is kind of like this without all the computer stuff. It's basically a rocket. And when the hammer strikes the bullet, it lights the propellant, and there's actually these 4 vents that are on the rear of the bullet where the primer would be, that are slightly angled to give it the rotation. And and what it does is it fires it starts to light off, and it builds up the energy through the barrel, and then after it leaves the barrel, that's when it really lights up and shoots forward like a rocket. So instead of just being pushed out and losing the energy that propels it after it leaves the barrel, it'll actually propel itself for quite a distance before or after it leaves the barrel of the gun. It's really weird. I mean, you guys can go look at Tough Flater Mouse. They did a video on this a couple of years ago, and I think Matt Carricker over at Demolition Ranch just did a video in the last few weeks with a couple of those. They're really interesting. Kind of the same design as these bullets, but not the computer stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, like on that screenshot that you have, if you look at the end of the bullet where the primer would be, it's got like that triangle cutout. And if you look at the little knockoff alien face huggers monster things that he's created in this film, they have that metal push rod that comes out. So it would make sense that the firearm maybe it works like a crossbow, like it pushes it's got like a steel rod that comes out of the firing mechanism and launches that rocket bullet off or whatever. Something like that I could see working, but it's always funny to look back and go to see what they thought future tech would be, 2 or 3 decades ago or whatever, to kind of compare to where we are now. But yeah, that scene, I love that scene where it's in the alley and it's doing loop-de-loops and side-by-sides and everything. That's such a cool shot.
There was a movie with Angelina Jolie in a couple decades. It's gonna do the same shit.
Curve the Bullet Wanted. Yeah, I saw it. Yeah. Oh, I saw it. Oh yeah.
But it's now that we've gotten all of Texas thoughts on the plot. I mean, look, for me, it's like the 80s were, and I remember being, from a child's mind anyway, I remember there being so much wonder about this technology that was happening at the time. It was like, because I remember in the early 80s is when like DVDs first started to get talked about and CDs and stuff on disc. And that was still a very new, novel idea. Nowadays, we're 5 generations past CDs and DVDs now. It's amazing how fast technology goes. But But yeah, I mean, just the idea of a video doorbell, the idea of video phone calls, the idea of even email was something that was so alien to us at the time. Yeah, drones, the floaters. The idea of all this stuff was just so alien at the time. But yeah, just watching this tech explosion of what was happening on screen was crazy. It was almost like watching Star Trek in a way, because they have the communicators, they have teleportation devices and shit like that. It all seems so wild, and it's crazy to think that within like 15 years, a lot of these things were commercially available. It's crazy.
That's why it was cool that there was a thing I watched about stuff like that, where it's like technologies that already kind of like came and went, something like pagers, and it may have been one of those pagers. It's kind of funny that they had like Leonard Nimoy doing the commercial for it. You got freaking Spock out there telling you like, yeah, this little device right here, and I'm like, that'd blow my mind, but also it's like that's a hell of a marketing technique. But also it's like, well, that one picture where it's like the guy from the 80s, and it's like all of this stuff that's sitting around him right now is all in this thing right here now. I'm like, yeah. It's not as fun anymore. You can't have boom boxes and fucking Walkmans and shit like that.
If I could go back and talk to my 10-year-old self in 1986, I'd be like, hey, bro, invest in Apple. Tell Dad to buy stock in Apple.
Right.
Right now.
Right now.
Apple and Disney, they're going to blow up in about 2005. Sell everything. You're going to be fine the rest of your life.
Oh,
put a mortgage, two or three mortgages on the house, invest it all. You'll be fine.
About 1995, Microsoft's going to make the fucking internet, and you're going to be happy you did.
It will all work out. But
oh man,
let's see. We've got Chase Witherspoon in the chat says an underrated film. I agree. This movie gives me a whole lot of chills since I was 7 when I first watched it on VHS. This goes back to the VHS, almost to the Betamax days. I remember Betamax. That's how old I was.
Yeah,
but
Laserdisc.
Yeah, I remember Laserdisc. I think my mom still has a couple of our old Laserdiscs. We had two Laserdiscs. We had Hunt for Red October and Major League on Laserdisc.
Ooh,
I think I've talked about it before. Those were the CDs that were the size of like vinyl records,
like of a fucking vinyl record.
Yeah, they were huge. My parents had a Laserdisc player that I don't know. My dad, for whatever reason, paid like $1,000 for it when it first came out or some shit like that. I think we bought 2 movies on it, and then DVDs became a thing. It was like, onto the DVD player. Yeah.
And now we're streaming.
Yeah, technology. Yeah, now we're streaming. Technology moves fast, man. It moves fast. But
stop to look around every once in a while. You might miss it.
It does. But let's get to some of the tech now. And some of the stuff. I mean, like I said, it's come and gone, but some of it still seems a little outlandish. I don't know, Tex. What did you think of like the accurate predictions on the technology? What did it get? What do you think it got right? We'll kind of extend this now since we've already kind of gone into it a little bit. What did you think of some of the stuff they got right? But what do you think of some of the stuff that's in here that maybe we haven't quite gotten to yet, other than the missile bullet?
Well, see, that's obviously we can go back and look at a myriad of films that have future tech, whether it's Back to the Future or stuff like this, or RoboCop or whatever. And I can't help but feel like the technology that we have now is being based off of those ideas. That's why it seems so similar. Like they created ideas of stuff, and then we're kind of fulfilling their dreams almost, because it's just so. I mean, you can go one or two ways about this. You can go conspiracy theory. Oh, well, they've got all this in a hidden bunker in Area 51, and they're 10 years ahead of us, with it, whether it's internet or whatever it may be. Or you can kind of go with the argument that I am here of, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. These engineers that see the tech, that now have the capability today to make this stuff, and they remember movies like this or Back to the Future, whatever whatever they relate to, and they're making these things to look like, whatever. Well, whether it's the cell phone, being a communicator from Star Trek or whatever, so many things. Hell, the drones and the tablets in this movie. Somebody could have been a fan of this that helped create the iPad or whatever. I think it's more one of those kind of things, because there's no way it's that much of a coincidence. You know what I mean?
Well, some of the stuff I'm sure DARPA was probably working on about this time anyway, so they probably just were like, "Hey,
Right.
DARPA, what kind of crap are you guys working on? Crazy shit." And like, "Oh, we're working on these flying cameras, like drones, is what we're calling them. We're working on robots that can be like your housemaid, like Rosie from the Jetsons." And they're like, "Oh yeah, we're totally going to throw all this shit we're doing because that would be wild." Yeah. But I don't know, Jeremy. What about you? I mean, what do you think that they put in this movie that we haven't gotten quite yet that you think you'd like to see?
I just realized we missed another one. When they're doing the retinal scan, I'm like, oh my God, it's face recognition from a cell phone. That's what that is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah,
that's right.
Gotta unlock your phone. Yeah. I mean, other than I want like a self-propelled, like Barrett 50 cal round.
That's a big bullet too. That's exactly what that is. It's a 50 cal round.
Yeah, you can't tell me they didn't just take a sample, just slice one in half and put all this crap in it and said, "Yep, that's a self-guided bullet."
Pretty much what it looks like.
Yeah, it might be. To be fair, let's see. Yeah, because I mean, we kind of got like cell phones. I mean, we just had, like I said, we had FaceTime. We got facial recognitions. I think I said FaceTime already. Thankfully, we don't have, like I said, we don't have little face huggers that have acid. That's I don't know. Maybe that's kind of a weird way to say it's like a drone, like a drone sent to kill somebody.
Well,
kind of.
What was that show where they fought robots? BattleBots?
Probably.
Yeah.
That's also very vague. A show where they fight robots.
Would you? Well, no, it was like I forget what channel it was on back in the day, but like these nerdy guys who were real smart, who knew like engineering and whatever. They would create their own fighting robot. Yeah, and they would go in the arena and fight. Technically, those spider things that Gene Simmons has, I'd call it one of those. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They didn't really have anything that was well, I don't know. Even that robot that he was talking, or the not the robot, but the voice he was talking to when they were trying to find out the employee of like that company. It's like it's kind of like a like you're searching just using your voice, so it's kind of the internet.
Like Alexa.
Maybe. It's still, I know, like Alexa for your job. Which,
it was Alexa in 1984. It was Alexa's grandma, is what it was.
Right. I don't know. They kind of hit it on the head, which is kind of creepy when you think about it. I mean, really, you can point to a lot of the stuff in this movie and say, like, yeah, we have that now, which is wild.
Well, that's why I say self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, that's the whole point. You know.
And I was thinking, like, I don't know, could they maybe try to remake this movie and you could probably polish it up a little bit, but like it'd be kind of wild if you remade this movie, and still have the same. Oh God, because like with the way AI is going and shit, like you could really make a movie about. I mean, it's still kind of Terminator, but
only if they bring back Gene Simmons to play his own grandson or son. That's the only way that I want to remake.
Have his son be that'd be funny.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about a potential remake here in just a minute, but
Tom Selleck is old and retired now.
For me, it's like it's not because like the tech. Here's the thing about tech. It's not that can this be done. It's can you make it small and compact enough and make it affordable enough for consumers to actually get value out of it. So it's like, Jeremy mentioned like the Ring doorbells. It's like, those things are everywhere now. You get them for like $100 at like Walmart at this point. I mean, they've become fairly normal. Whereas back then, you could have that effect. You would just need a big TV, a large enough TV to see, and then run wires to a big camera outside your door, and you would have to run some other wires to relays. And it was this whole production to actually get that kind of an effect at your house. Whereas nowadays you go buy one of these doorbells of various brands and prices or whatever, and you stick it right there, put a SD card and a battery in it, you're good to go in like 10 minutes. So that's always been the thing about tech. If you pay attention to it at all, is it's not that can it be done? Sure, it can be done, but can it be done at small enough scale to where it has a broader, application of things you can apply it to, broader usages. And that's always been tech. And I think it's funny because if you look at all these things that we see, we have those things now. We've had those things for quite some time. But look at stuff from like the movies from like the early '90s where you see people with like the car phones that were still like in cords. They would reach down between themselves, answer it like it was a regular phone in their car. And nowadays we have the iPhone, we have whatever, we have this and that. So it's a matter of making it small enough, mobile enough, and compatible for mobility, rather than just can you do it? Because it's easy to do if you've got all the wires and all the equipment and stuff like that, the place to do it all. But now we have that stuff. You know what I mean?
There was something funny that Chris Hardwick said in one of his stand-ups. He's like, when you think about like cell phones, he's like, even today, like the redneckiest of rednecks has a freaking iPhone in his pocket. You know what I mean? But if you thought 30, 40 some years ago, it's like if you had that big brick sitting on the side of your face, it's like you were probably, living pretty high on the horse, And you see that picture of the IBM computer from like the mid 50s. That fucker takes up a whole room for one computer to do what? And I'm like, well, basically it's right all here in the palm of my hand, that whole thing. This is what I'm looking at right here. I got, 2 screens here, and it's more readily available to just about anybody, even the internet's easier. You're not sitting there trying to get minutes off of AOL CDs and crap like that.
Yeah. So, I read something. I
remember that.
I read something a while back that said an iPhone has something like 5 or 6 times more computing ability than the computers that were on the Apollo spacecraft that we used to get.
Right. That's nuts.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, it's interesting if you think about just like how time changes everything. Like everything becomes easier, but less available. It's really weird. I mean, there's a lot of shit that goes into it. Even somebody had mentioned on one of the podcasts the other day that Norman Rockefeller, one of the richest people it has ever been, that the poorest people today have access to better dental care than Norman Rockefeller had when he was 35 years old in his prime and probably the richest person on the planet.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
Not because not because they don't have money, but just because the technology has advanced so much. Someone
has that picture of the Wright brothers taking off in the plane, and then you jump from 1913 to like 1969. Now we're going to the moon in the same damn decade. You're like, what? That's kind of almost in like one person's lifetime, conceivably. Like, that's insane.
And it was only 20 years from when the Wright brothers made their first flight to when we were using aircraft in World War I. That's only about a 20-year span.
Right. That's insane. We had them. Yeah. It's weird. They were like, we don't want to do that. It's like, well, Kalashnikov didn't want his gun to be a weapon of war, and look what happened. But how do you not think, oh, hey, we can be in the air now? And
it was only about 50 years after that we had pretty much nailed down for the most part jet technology.
In the 50s, yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
Matter of fact, it was probably a little bit earlier than that because I know the Germans were working on jet technology. They just didn't quite have the time to get it perfected before the end of World War II. Thank God.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, right. In 1 century, we went from not being able to fly at all, and the Wright brothers managed to do their thing. And then, 68 years later? 63 years later? We were putting a man on the moon.
Yeah. Wasn't even there was a newspaper article, and not real or not, but it's still funny that someone said like, oh, yeah, around the turn of the century, like, oh, man's never going to fly for another million years. And I'm like, yeah, like 5 years later, boom, now we're flying. You're welcome. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, and I'm going to say it as somebody who is a native, fuck you, North Carolina. No, you didn't. I will die on that goddamn hill.
You know that shit belongs here in Ohio. Come on. I'm not even a native Ohioan, but I know where we lost Tex. Oh, there's the one time the show where we always lose Tex.
There's the one per.
But
I know you know better even. Yeah.
I'm not even an Ohioan. I'm a Californian in my heart and by birth, but yeah, I'm going to give Ohio credit where credit is due on that one. But while Tex works on his connection, let's go on to something that was already mentioned here, the possibility of a remake. And, Jeremy, you had mentioned a minute ago, it would be interesting to see this movie remade with modern sensibilities. I don't know. What did you what do you think a remake would look like if I was to give you the budget, give you the director's chair? What do you think you would make a remake of this movie look like?
That's what I was trying to excuse me, what I was trying to think about watching this movie. Because even as kind of campy and goofy as it might have seemed at first, honestly, and again, thinking of like the video game Fallout, I mean, that's kind of, like I said, the Mr. Gutsy robots that just like kind of, well, they float, you know, around your home and help you with stuff, just like Lois does in this movie. It's not too far off. So honestly, that's not a bad starting point to have, albeit maybe kind of clunky still. Like you said, technology can always get worked down and down, smaller and smaller and a little more streamlined. So maybe, yeah, try to enhance more of those like practical, those practical robots. But I said, I guess maybe something to throw in for nowadays is maybe throw in some of the AI, because like if you had your, Gene Simmons bad guy, like, I don't know, he could be using AI twisted to his own means to mess with some inner city cop who has a fear of heights. I don't know if you can keep the fear of heights, I suppose. I don't know.
We build buildings tall now, so
yeah. I'm just thinking, even in this time, it's like, even if it would really suck to be paranoid, because it's like this stuff is everywhere. Like, there's cameras everywhere, there's satellites, there's GPS, there's everything. So there's a lot more, even just from 1984 to now, that we've, gotten. I'd still make it a funny joke. You can call that drone the floater. I don't know. That'd just be funny. It's a funny nickname. I think that's my only other contribution to it, is like maybe AI would start playing a part into it. If it was like current-ish year, but maybe you want to set it maybe 10, 15 years down the line. Because, I mean, who knows even what's going to happen then? I don't know.
Yeah, Tex, how about you? If I gave you the budget and gave you the director's chair, what would you do if you could make a remake of Runaway? What would you make it look like?
That's what I was thinking about as I was watching this. And I think to kind of make it topical to what's going on here, Jeremy's on the right course with this AI thing. But the motivation that I would give to my villain, whether it's, Gene Simmons playing his own grandson or whatever, it was just, comedic. You wouldn't have to do that. I would play up the AI angle. But the angle that I would go with is basically that the villain of the film would be like, let's say he was a technician or something on, devices, and so you still keep the repairman angle from this movie, right? But the AI that has now came out has put him out of work, but he was so upset and just frustrated, whatever. He found a way to override it. So now he's going to use the thing that took away his livelihood, his everything. Maybe his wife left him, whatever. If you want to go with a cheesy 80s angle, right? He's now going to use that same technology to basically go after the ones that he feels have done him wrong, whether it's a cop or it's a whatever. It doesn't have to be a cop to be a sequel. But I think that would be kind of an interesting way, because, obviously the AI is taking jobs. Well, the whole chat GPT thing with the writer's strike in Hollywood and stuff. AI is a real issue. I mean, it's taking a lot of jobs and everything else. I feel if you're going to do a remake, keep it a little loose and not silly, because this movie's not silly. It's I'd say cheesy more than anything. But go with the whole AI, overtaking everybody, and this one man is determined to use it to get his just due. Is where I would go.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I don't think there's any other MacGuffin you could put in here except for AI if you were to remake that movie today. I think because it's been so prevalent in the news for one reason or another for the last probably couple of years, that's exactly the way you would do it. The hard part would be finding a bad guy as good as Gene Simmons. I mean, he's so damn good. I mean, I don't know that there's anybody out there today that could visually strike a presence the way that he does in this film. That'd be the tough part. Now, would it be hard finding the cute girl to be the partner? Probably not. I mean, Hollywood's is just silly with cute girls looking for their big break. Would it be hard to find someone to play Tom Selleck's role? Probably not. There's lots of young guys out there that could do it. You could even go after a guy who's already kind of established, get like a Chris Pine or somebody like that, or Star-Lord, what's his name, Chris Pratt, something like that. I mean, one of those guys I think could probably do it, or maybe even find somebody who's on the younger side who's looking for his big break. I mean, that could be interesting. Hollywood likes their youth movements. Jack Quaid would be another one, but yeah, the other ancillary characters like the black guy that was his partner, Shaw. I'm going to draw a blank on the guy's name, but yeah, there's lots of character actors you could fill in to be for that stuff. But for me, it would really have to be AI as the primary thing, or even maybe don't have a bad guy at all. Maybe have some guy who's working in the shadows, calling himself Luther, and then come to find out that it was actually an AI program that has been running the whole.
I was going to say
guy all along.
That would be cool.
And it called itself Luther or something like that.
I was just thinking of Mr. House from Fallout New Vegas. He's just he does have a physical body. But he's like
what was that Johnny Depp
all these movie? Robots.
What was that Johnny Depp movie where he's some sort of computer analyst guy? Where
Transcendence?
That's it. That's the movie I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what we all keep hoping they're going to do with Tony Stark, just make his consciousness like another one of the AIs in the suits or something.
They're not going to do that. They're going to bring him back.
Dude, we got the time travel crap. Like, our Loki now is the 2012 Loki because he already died and whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm like,
yeah.
Right. And we did the same thing with Gamora. I'm like, you could do the same thing with Black Widow. You can do the same. It doesn't matter anymore.
But it was a decent enough ending with Gamora. If you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I actually kind of like the way things ended.
No, I didn't see it. I was like, well,
the end, the whole way it plays out for her to Starlight, I thought was very fitting.
Okay, I mean, like we're in a post Endgame era of where the stones are just freaking paperweights.
Whatever.
As much as I liked the Loki show, I'm kind of like, really?
Questionable decisions in Phase 4 to be sure, but that's a whole other show. But
we'll get there. Loki season 2. Woo.
Yeah, this is not one of the movies that has been talked about a whole lot for a remake. I mean, I was looking around a little bit yesterday and I couldn't find anything about it. So it's less likely we're going to see a remake of this anytime soon compared to anything else that we could. But I mean, if you have to do a remake, this wouldn't be the worst movie to try it. I mean, robotics and tech are still a big thing. I mean, they were new in 1984, but now they're kind of every day. They're a part of our lives. I mean, cell phones, all this stuff, the computers that we're on right now, the internet that we're on right now. I mean, having technology so ingrained in our everyday lives, it would be interesting to think about that computer stuff, that tech either not working or, worst case scenario, turning against us. I think that'd be very interesting as well. But before we get on to any of the trivia for the day, actually, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. But before we get on to that, don't forget that we're very, very close. I think we're something like 13 people away, I think, as I recall. Woo! So 500 subscribers, we will do a charity stream for the Abandoned Pet Project. The Abandoned Pet Project, it actually helps pull animals that were going to be euthanized out of these shelters, gets them nursed back to health, and helps find them homes. They're based primarily in the Texas area, but they are expanding little by little. So if we get to 500 subs, we will do it soon. We're only 13 or so away, I think, last I checked. We will be doing a charity stream for the Abandoned Pet Project, and for every 500 subs we get, we'll do a charity stream. Either something like this, or maybe a college fund, or something. I don't know, Feeding America, that kind of thing. We will do a charity stream for every 500 subscribers we can get. First one will be the Abandoned Pet Project. So help spread the word. Help get us out to all your friends. Let them know. 500 subscribers, and we'll help charity. Now, there is one thing I wanted to go into. I'm kind of going off my list here, but I have some great pictures here of it, and I want to talk about it because it's just a great scene. The death scene for Gene Simmons' character. I love when he hits the ground, he shoots over, he's like, oh shit. I was like, that is one of the best death scenes of a bad guy. In a decade where there was a lot of really cool bad guy deaths. I mean, this one does stand out above a lot of them. I don't know, Tex, I'll go to you first. I mean, just how cool was the whole him being attacked by a horde of his own spiders? them blowing up on him, like you can see there, things like that. How cool was that scene?
Like I said in the beginning, that if you look up the perfect '80s bad guy villain, you can direct this as one of the examples of what you should copy. Even the death. I mean, whenever he's laying there and you think he's gone, and he has that one last gasp, and he has that very evil Gene Simmons look. Like it's the only shot in the movie where he gets to use that tongue that he's so famous for. It doesn't go all the way out, but just enough that you know it's there. I mean, they had to get it in one shot, right? And it's just the death was so cool. It's just like, Grr! I'm dead, and it was just perfect. I mean, look at that, look at that. It's just like,
man.
I mean that look right there of, Gene Simmons. He's, I mean, obviously, like I said, I'm a Kiss fan. I always find it weird not seeing Kiss in the makeup. Like in my head canon, they're always in costume. That makes no sense whatsoever. But that's how I've always seen them. Like during that whole Unplugged era, they kind of really shot themselves in the foot. The Unpainted era, or whatever. But no, that death scene was just too cool. It was the perfect cheese. I couldn't help but feel like Randy from Scream. Like, oh, they always come back for one last scare, and then wow, there it is. But it was just so perfect.
Yeah, Jeremy, what about you? What do you think of that awesomely radical death scene?
Yeah, so you do that about 12 years later to Sidney Prescott, she would already fucking put one through your dome. So, I mean, that's kind of horrifying. It's like, it's funny. It's kind of a funny like quip too, that it's like, oh yeah, the technology that you put in place to try and like kill this cop ended up biting you in the ass. I mean, quite literally. So it's funny that it won out over him in the end. And it's, that's some like almost monster movie type shit, like where those things are just crawling on him. And I love practical stuff. I love that the robots were practical and they're just crawling on him. And again, they're horrifying because they have these little needles that they just stick into you and basically just they kill you. And then they start exploding, and then you got all the smoke and crap. Just his whole body's just being, although his face still looked pretty articulate still, but whatever, I don't care. You kind of know the camp is coming when he just goes to get him one last time, and I'm like, okay. So again, it's goofy, but I'm like, what? Yeah, that shit right there. Like whatever, it works. And Tom Selleck, you can see, he already has his hand around his throat, so all he had to do was just push down. But
you see, that's just how far ahead of his time Selleck was, as he saw this shit coming. Whereas we were all like, "Oh no, he's got one more shot left in him to try to kill Tom Selleck." Tom Selleck's like, "No,
no, you don't. It's the power of the stash, man. No,
I'm Magnum PI, damn it, PI, private investigator. I look at shit."
Yeah, I mean, like even when the camera guy went down, I'm like, why do you touch his shoulder and go like, I'm like, that's not how you check if he's dead. I was like, what? I'm like, oh, he had his hand around his throat. I'm like, oh, he's checking for a pulse this time. And then he goes to get him. I was like, oh, no. Go back to sleep.
I think it's funny though how Tom Selleck doesn't even seem to react. It's like he goes out there, he puts his hand in there, and then Gene Simmons reaches up and does this whole thing.
Oh yeah.
And Tom Selleck almost rolls his eyes. It's like, really, motherfucker? You think I'm gonna fall
like, really?
Well,
you're too old
he's playing this. He's playing it John Wayne cowboy style. He's playing it strong, and he's, he slowly struts over there. He doesn't even really take his time. He's not gonna. The one thing that surprised me out of all of it was they didn't do the stereotypical, like he's got like Tom Selleck has one shirt sleeve ripped off. It's like unbuttoned halfway, so he has all the hamburger meat hanging out. He's tattered like he was just in Die Hard or something. That's the one thing I'm surprised that they didn't do in that scene, considering it was Tom Selleck and what he was famous for. But no, it's
they put that acid stuff on his face, but they didn't touch the stash. I mean, they kept it on the sides of his face.
Oh yeah, no, it was all
just the mustache.
Over here.
No,
that mustache.
I mean,
I'm surprised. Between him and Sam Elliott, both of their mustaches should have their own star on the Walk of Fame. Like those two guys deserve it.
It may be like
maybe
Chuck
Burt,
Norris's beard too.
maybe Burt Reynolds, but not as much. Not as much as Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott. Those two guys,
you should have
their
put
facial hair. Huh?
that should have been the poll. Who's got a better '80s mustache? Sam Elliott, Tom Selleck.
Oh, Sam Elliott. Sam Elliott.
Reynolds, man.
That's a slam dunk. But
I would say
his mustache deserved a credit in this movie. I'll say that.
I give best mustache by a whisker, get it, to Tom Selleck. But best overall like head of hair and like overall look, I gotta give it to Sam Elliott Roadhouse. I mean, he was rocking the whole look in Roadhouse. So I gotta kind of give him.
That's fair.
That one. We should have y'all already reviewed Roadhouse?
We have not. I'm actually holding on to that because we are getting closer and closer to the remake that's happening with Jake Gyllenhaal, and the more I'm reading about that, I'm interested in what it's going to look like. So I figured we'll do those back to back.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I look. It could be worse. They could have moved forward with the Ronda Rousey version they were going to do because Ronda Rousey was supposed to play the Dalton character in a remake, and then for whatever reason that fell through. So they got Jake Gyllenhaal. They've actually shot a lot of stuff already. I think they got it all filmed before the strike. I'm not 100% sure, but they've done a lot of filming at a UFC. They actually went to a UFC event to film like him. He's an ex-UFC fighter that gets involved when he gets involved in the movie. So they actually filmed him weighing in against one of the other fighters at a UFC weigh-in, and then at a UFC event, they actually got him walking into the ring.
That's funny
on B-roll and stuff at an actual UFC event. So I don't know. We'll see. All I know is, look, I've seen pictures of Jake Gyllenhaal at the weigh-in, and the guy's got a fucking 8-pack. I wouldn't want to fuck with Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm not gonna lie. Now he's probably more of a light middleweight. He's not a heavyweight by any means, but he is kind of. Well,
neither was Patrick Swayze, to be fair. He was lightweight as well.
Yeah, in the picture that I saw, he is cut. I mean, honestly, I hate to make this kind of a comparison because it makes it seem really awesome, but he's cut like Bruce Lee. I mean, the guy's just a muscle and tendons, and he's got the 8-pack, and he's like, he's definitely been juiced.
Bruce Lee was no joke, though. I mean,
oh yeah,
I mean, god damn.
Yeah, so. But we'll get around to those when it comes out. But let's get into a little bit of trivia now. And let's see. The film's director, Michael Crichton, actually commented that the Canadian crew was both positive and enthusiastic. This film was actually shot up in Canada, in Vancouver, British Columbia. And the entire film would have been shot in British Columbia, except the delayed spring weather slowed the growth of the corn there. Thus, the necessity to move to Moses Lake in Washington State in the U.S. for a 2-day shoot for the sequence early in the movie in the cornfield. That's actually it's a very comical scene. I love how she's like, "Hey, I got it." And it blows up in her face or some shit.
That's a big field to till for that one tiny little robot. Unless there was more of them out there we didn't see, like you're gonna need more equipment, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I was like, you called in the police to handle one robot that's not armed, that doesn't have any defensive capabilities, it isn't dangerous. All you can do is walk up there and turn. And even Ramsey's like, on the way there, the helicopter, he's like, sometimes all I gotta do is go there and throw a switch. I'm like, you gotta call a cop out here in a helicopter with all their equipment to go out there and throw a damn switch. I'm like, I gotta build you guys $7 million for that in 1984 money, not in today's money. In 1984 money for coming out here and doing some bullshit like that.
Come on to like Ghostbusters, like, well, that's $3 million for this, that's $3 million for the capture, $2 million for me having to turn it off and take it back. You know, man, I feel like that's more so like let's break the rookie and like make her go out there and fucking jump on this robot like a snipe hunt or some shit. Like I feel like that was maybe how I took it. I'm like, haha, dumbass. You know, that's some like Wile E. Coyote shit. She's like, I got it, and then boom, it fucking gets out of her hands.
See, that's one thing. You know, they have a whole side police force just for robots. People hate cops now as it is. Could you imagine how people would lose their minds and say, "Hey, we have a second police force now"? People would just be burning crap down everywhere.
But they only shoot robots, not minorities. It's okay. Nobody cares.
The robots kind of are the minorities, though. Damn it! Somebody's gonna be mad about this. Somebody shot my fucking.
In today's world, there's going to be the people for the ethical treatment of robots.
Yeah.
We're gonna call him
Is there
Peter.
any way we can cross? Is there any way we can cross this over with the Transformers franchise? Could you imagine Tom Selleck trying to pull over Optimus Prime? Be like, sir, you're speeding. Pull over, Optimus. You know what?
Roll
That's
out.
a movie I need to see as well out there. Like,
Yeah, somebody
there's
shot a
some
Roomba last
speaking of
week. Like,
stuff.
well, god damn it, it's a hate crime now. Son of a bitch.
Now let's play a little game real quick. Since I can't play body count because this isn't a horror movie with a lot of deaths, we're gonna play a game with you guys. I'll go to you first, Jeremy. How many times do you think Tom Selleck's character name Ramsey is said in this movie?
Oh,
How the fuck am I supposed to know that?
I gotta fuck with you guys.
Well, given what we just did right there, I'm like, well, there was one F-bomb, and I gave it to him at a pretty appropriate moment for a, albeit 1984 PG-13 movie. I was like, yeah. I'm like, you did about 30 seconds ago. You just gave me full frontal nudity, so I mean, whatever. It's the
I
80s.
was gonna say they get a extra point for showing tits, so you know, kudos for that.
Yeah. Like, so just his name said.
Just Ramsey.
Because I mean, I know Gene Simmons, I think, says it a few times, probably more than anyone else.
I think
25.
the partner says it more than he does, though.
Yeah, I was thinking like in the PlayStation. I'll go 25.
Text that
Damn it, you stole my number.
I'm sorry.
Well, considering Jeremy stole my number, I'll go.
Do it for Bob Barker. Go 26. Go one up or over. I don't. $1, Bob. You might get it.
26, Bob. I'll take 26, Bob. There you go. All right.
Don't forget to spay and neuter your robots.
The closest without going over was actually Tex. Tom Selleck's character's name Ramsey is said approximately 52 times in this movie, a little more than once every 2 minutes. Here's where now.
I was going to say 30.
I obviously knew the answer ahead of time, but the reason why I think I probably would have guessed higher than 26 is because if you've noticed every time that Luther is talking, especially to Ramsey, every time he says something, he finishes the sentence with Ramsey. I'm going to come get you, Ramsey. I've got your son, Ramsey. You can't stop me, Ramsey. It's like he ends every sentence with Ramsey's name, which I thought was
tell me where you live, Ramsey, and I'll come kill you. Yeah.
And then, of course, you got other cops yelling his name. You got fucking, I don't know, his partner
Lois
talking to him, stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. Actually, I think Lois does. Does she call him? I guess she does call him Officer Ramsey, doesn't she?
Maybe.
Or Officer. I don't know. I forget.
mean, she did play that recording though when the phone conversation, which again was Gene Simmons. So I don't know who technically got that. But that's awesome.
But I mean, his name is said. That's all that matters. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that his name was said that many times. I guess maybe it's because he's the main character. There's only really 3 characters that get a lot of screen time, other than maybe Kirstie Alley in this. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. But Gene Simmons, in his book Sex, Money, Kiss, said that director Michael Crichton's casting of him was based primarily on an audition where Crichton asked Simmons to stare at him for about a minute without making any facial expressions. Apparently, Crichton decided that Simmons looked menacing enough and cast him in the role of Luther.
Well, it works.
That makes sense. I mean, because that's one of the most significant parts of him in this whole movie. It's like the fact that he's so cold-bloodedly will look at you, and it's like,
like that.
You know, they say when looks could kill, or somebody's looking daggers out of their eyes. That's kind of what he spends this entire movie doing. You ever notice he doesn't really smile in the movie unless he's about to kill somebody, or at least try to.
Yeah.
Like in the alley.
Well, of course, because
yeah, that's the only happiness that he found, which I thought was pretty interesting. But I'll put this up so we can talk about the gun for a minute. The pistol used by Ramsey is a custom-built Detonix 1911 9mm with a muzzle bell to look like a .45. That is not the gun that you can see here in the picture. Actually, ironically enough, that was the bad guy's gun, which Ramsey never actually fires or holds in the film. But Ramsey's gun was a 9mm. I'd have thought it would have been a .45, but that's just me.
I thought those were like full-sized 45s, man. I was like, damn. And even when he pointed at him, I was like, that's a big fucking muzzle. I thought it was a 45. I don't know.
Let's see. Here's some something that tells us exactly when this film takes place. Given Ramsey's age of 35, which is revealed in the film, and his birth year of 1956, which flashes on a computer screen, the movie takes place around 1991. So it is kind of the near future for when the movie came out.
Fair enough.
Okay.
So again, not far off future, but far enough to where you would think this stuff would have become a thing.
I'd be willing to bet that Tom Selleck was significantly older than 35 when he played this role.
I thought he was too. I was like, "You're 35." Bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would imagine he was probably about that age, maybe a shade older.
I would guess like early 40s if I had to put a number on it.
I thought it was closer to
41 to 42.
So this movie came out in 84. Tom Selleck was born in 45. So he was about 39.
Okay.
So he was right there on that 40 cusp. All right. That's not, I mean, we're not too far off with our guesses. It's not too bad.
But I mean, if you've seen him, I mean, he's aged pretty damn well. Shit. Still looks good.
My dad was a big fan of Blue Bloods, and so I've watched quite a bit of it. And he does still look, while he's aging, obviously, he does still look pretty good.
He looks damn good still.
Yeah. He needs to play Commissioner Gordon in a Batman movie before he dies.
Ooh.
He was born to be that role. Obviously,
as I love J. Jonah Jameson doing it. I mean, I'm like, I never thought.
Oh no,
man,
the guy that played J. Jonah Jameson, he's probably my favorite Commissioner Gordon. But Tom Selleck as a Arkham game style Commissioner Gordon,
the older, yeah,
I think is perfect casting. And yes, it's type casting. It's easy. He's played 15,000 cops in movies. But Commissioner Gordon is like the cop role, just one time in a Batman project. I think that needs to happen. I mean,
if we did a string of those Arkham movies from the Arkham games, I mean, holy shit, that'd be wild, man.
Or if they did a 80s style Dark Knight Returns live action and getting a retiring Commissioner Gordon, that he might be able to do even better considering his age.
That's the one time, damn it, bring back fucking Ben Affleck. Just give him one more.
Yeah. Just
God damn it.
Make it I mean, they have DC Elseworlds. I mean, James Gunn said this, right? They have the capability to do it, Why not?
And that is if you've seen the suit and that fucking animation, that's definitely what they were going for. I'm like, man, you had Dark Knight Returns. Man.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, Tom Selleck, he's one of the greats. Magnum. He was on. If it hadn't been for Magnum PI, he was going to be Indy. I still would have loved to have seen his version of Indiana Jones.
He was up for the role of Indiana Jones.
That's true. That's true.
I would have. Obviously Harrison Ford will forever be Indy, but not seeing Tom Selleck play that role is something that I think we're missing out on, because I think it could have been cool. But
I just thought of a really funny mashup for a cosplay of that. Do the Indy hat, but keep the mustache. Put the leather jacket, but put the Hawaiian shirt underneath the jacket. I see the mashup here.
I gotta find it now. Somebody I've seen before. Somebody had done like a Photoshop thing of Tom Selleck in Indiana Jones gear.
Ooh.
Well, no. On one of the DVDs for Indiana Jones, they put the footage of that he actually shot for Indiana Jones. Like, you could actually see him in that test footage or whatever. It's on the internet.
Kind of like how
it was
kind of like how Eric Stoltz already did a little bit of Back to the Future. It's out there.
Yeah. Well, no, he was I don't remember which release it was on for Indiana Jones, but one of the special editions had the footage that was shot with Tom Selleck as Indy in the hat and the coat and the whole thing.
I'm seeing a bunch of pictures, but not the one that I saw that was super convincing. These are all obvious. I'm pretty sure it was obviously photoshopped, but I'll grab one of these because it's the best I can do right now. I really wish I found, because there was one that I saw years ago that was like, holy shit, that'd be cool as hell. But I'll end up getting one of these because it's not gonna. I can't easily find the one that I want. So I'll go with we'll go with this one right here, I guess. Again, an obvious Photoshop, but it gives you the idea of what it would have looked like if the mustache was the one going around and fighting the Nazis and stuff like that. Let's see if we can do it over.
Hey, Tom Selleck's mustache beats Hitler's mustache every time, buddy. Like, it's not even a question.
Who really wants Hitler's mustache? Who really wants the sticky Hitler anyway?
Well, apparently Michael Jordan did there for a little while, but that didn't work out too well for him. So,
I mean, there's a picture here. It looks like he's actually in the
there's test footage.
The grainy image just looks real. Like,
all righty, you ready for this?
Yeah,
here we go.
It was on one of the DVDs.
Here's what we could have gotten. This would have been Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. What we would have seen, something like this.
That would have been cool. I mean, obviously that's Harrison Ford body, but yeah, that works. Like Tom Selleck, he doesn't have that kind of dry comedic wit that Harrison Ford does for Indy, but I would have loved to have seen his version of Indiana Jones. Just how different would it have been? You know what I mean?
That could have been interesting. But let's go back to a little bit of Gene Simmons action. Let me pull up the right picture. Let's see. An assistant director came up to Gene Simmons during location filming and said that one of the off-duty Vancouver police that was doing crowd control had pointed to Gene Simmons and said, better get him out of there. Upon being reassured by the assistant director that he was actually one of the actors, the cop just kind of shrugged and continued and said, I don't know. If I shook hands with him, I'd have to count on my fingers. So he was striking an opposing figure, you know.
Oh, he's got a look about it. I mean, when you see, you could take Gene Simmons in this movie and put him in Dracula makeup, and he would be a great Dracula with the hair the way it was and the widow's peak naturally, from the receding hairline. He strikes an imposing figure just with the eyes. That's why he makes it work so well with the demon makeup. So, oh well.
Yeah, let's see. A little bit more Gene Simmons action. Gene Simmons made his dramatic theatrical film debut in this movie, if one doesn't count, of course, Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park in 1978. The leader of the rock group Kiss discovered, much to his delight, that he had his master villain character down pat. When asked to describe his role, Simmons said simply, his name is Charles Luther, and he's a very bad guy. He went on to say, playing the villain is all right with Simmons as long as the role has depth. If you hate me in this movie, I'll be thrilled. I mean, that makes sense.
Hey, he had fun. So,
well, he's an 80s villain. You don't need to know any more about him. His whole purpose is to be missing and do bad things. He doesn't need a backstory. That's kind of the whole point.
Let's see. Tex, you're the car guy. I don't know if you noticed, but the cop cars in the movie were all Mercury Topazes. Do you remember those cars?
I couldn't tell what they were.
They were made from the mid 80s. They were made from the mid 80s up till about the mid or late 90s, and I think they ended up getting replaced by the
Crown Vics, probably.
No, not Crown Vic. It was something.
The
else.
Ford.
Okay.
The Ford. What were they?
Escort, maybe.
The Ford Escort. Yeah. The Ford Escort. Yeah.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten about these cars, and I was even watching it like in the movie. I was like, I don't even know those don't look like cop cars. They don't even look like cop cars of the era. Like even the cop cars of the era were the old grandpa cars that were kind of big and clunky. But
I couldn't place what the cars were when I watched this movie. I was looking. I'm like, I don't know what those are. Like,
yeah, I've never seen a compact car be used as a police car anywhere. It's just so weird.
No, I mean you see. Now most police use like Chargers or, I mean, a lot of them down here are either Chargers, SUVs, or some of them even use trucks now. Which for being where I live, they have to go into more off-roady type things or whatever, so it makes sense. But no, the cop cars, they looked weird in this movie. I wasn't quite a big fan of that.
Yeah, they did look odd. It was obviously some product placement. They wanted somebody to ask what those kind of cars were. It was just weird.
Yeah.
But let's see. I don't know if you guys remember when Ramsey visits with the psychic, which I thought was hilarious, by the way. I don't know why they were down there. I was watching this. I was like, do you mean to tell me there was actually somebody in the 80s that took that shit seriously? But then again, it was the 80s. Everybody was on coke in the 80s. But when Jack Ramsey visits the psychic, she begins saying a short list of names, one of which is Lucifer. This could be an inside joke, considering that many detractors of Gene Simmons' band Kiss have often claimed the name stands for Knights in Satan's Service.
Well, his look is called the Demon, right? So that kind of makes sense. Like, this is the Demon one. You know.
Well, it's no different than they claimed AC/DC was Antichrist Devil Children or something like that. It's a marketing gimmick to sell CDs and T-shirts or tapes at that point in time.
Satanic Panic. Woo!
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I mean,
don't play D&D and listen to Metallica, kids. You're going to go wrong in life.
Yeah, and that was the exact same time that the Satanic Panic was happening. I mean, obviously, Eddie Munson and all that was kind of doing.
Eddie Munson, baby.
So yeah, he would have listened to Kiss for sure. But
so
it makes sense.
This is music.
It's just music, kids. Calm the fuck down. Calm down, Tipper Gore. It's okay.
We need music.
It'll be all right. Hey, Tipper Gore, show me on the CD where Gene Simmons touched you. Let's see.
Tipper Gore wishes that Gene Simmons had pulled that tongue out. She would have loved that. You can't convince me otherwise. Yeah.
Let's see. When Thompson, the girl, and the police tech officer are assembling a mugshot of Luther. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Right after Luther killed Johnson, on a small computer screen, the image of Luther actually blinks. Did you guys see that?
No.
I don't think I did.
That's weird. I didn't see that.
It is really quick, and it's right towards the end of the scene, right before it cuts away. But you'll see them. She's given the description, and the girl's on the little iPad thing, moving stuff around, and then you see him kind of turn one way and then turn back this way, and then right before it cuts out, you see him blink ever so quickly.
Oh man,
like it was a video.
Turn to the side and turn back, and
then right after he turns his head back, he blinks.
Oh. Well, I knew.
I actually had to catch out the second time around. I was like, wait a minute, I was just reading that he blinks, but I was like, are you sure? I was like, sure, shit, he blinks. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, part of me is kind of like, well, they probably had some video footage or some mugshots of this guy anyway. He was a career criminal. Yeah. I'm willing to bet he was in the system somewhere, even in the 1980s. But I thought that was pretty cool. But we talked about it a little before. The film accurately predicts domestic robots, which aren't fully everywhere yet. Video mail, which we can send easily. Social media. I didn't see any social media in here necessarily, but whatever. The internet, obviously. Voice-activated computers, like we have with Siri. Biometric security, mostly the retinal identification. Camera drones, tablet PCs, wireless headsets, and the police officers would use semi-automatic pistols as sidearms. In 1984, most police officers were still using revolvers.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think the one thing they kind of got wrong, because I'm like, I think this might have been a misconception. Because I saw this thing about, it was a mob guy. They when cell phones were kind of getting more out there. Because Gene Simmons says, oh, you're not going to find me. I'm on a cell phone. I'm like, that's not how that works. You can still track that. It's just because it's not a hard line thing. They all thought that too. Oh, I'm on a cell phone. Haha. You can't track me. I'm like, you can, dude. But...
Give it an hour. Give it an hour. We'll figure it out.
Well,
yeah, you still can.
I mean, even when Gene Simmons is talking to Tom Selleck on the phone, where talking about having a son or whatever. Hey, y'all go ahead.
All right.
But yeah, the one that gets me is the social media. I don't remember seeing any social media in this.
Maybe the Ring camera, because they kind of left messages for him and hey, let me know if you want to go to the thing later. Call me back. Bye. And I'm like, maybe that's
that could be the only thing. I don't see any other mentioning of social media anywhere.
Is it kind of like sending a Snapchat to somebody, sending a video real quick and be like, hey, this happened. Bye. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember any social media, but whatever.
I don't know.
But let's see. With
well, I mean, when that profile comes up, it's almost like you're looking at a MySpace page. Like, hey, it's this guy. He's into this. He's into this. He's this. He's widowed. He's got a kid. I'm like, maybe. I don't know.
Except when Gene Simmons is on the phone with him, he's like, "Just tell me where you live, and I'll come kill you quick." Like he has all this technology and know-how, but he doesn't know where the guy's apartment is. That was kind of weird too.
Well, it wouldn't be social media readily available to everybody if he had to go into the police station to get it.
Yeah, he walked right in there.
Which is hilarious. He walks right in there. He's
like some John Dillinger shit. He walks right in. It's like, okay, no one checked him? Really?
There's no
That's
ID.
some video game type shit. He put the uniform on. He's like, cool, I'm going to waltz right in.
You got to walk in real slow. If you run, you're going to trip him. You know what I mean? That's how it is in the video games. You can't run. You got to walk. And if you actually hit the run button, that's when all alarms are going to go off and all the bad guys.
Time to go loud.
Time to go loud. But with a multi-million-dollar budget and big name actors and world famous author as both writer and director, Runaway was planned as 1984's major science fiction draw. However, was overshadowed by a couple of small movies that came out right about the same time. One of which being James Cameron's blockbuster The Terminator.
Yeah.
Another one being Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, the only good odd-numbered Star Trek movie. And 2010, The Year We Make Contact, the sequel to 2001: A Space Odyssey. As a result, the film was a box office disappointment.
Oof. That sucks.
I wonder.
Yeah, well, hang on. Let's see. Trying to think how quickly did this. I mean, I don't know how you would look this up, but I know this was on TNT and TBS a lot. So I wonder how quickly after its theatrical run it was on television. Like it probably went pretty fast, I would think.
Well, back then, I mean, nowadays it's a lot faster. I mean, up until recently with COVID and all that, the way it affected theaters, it was a 90-day window from the end of the theatrical run to
home release
to when it would be on secondary media, what is considered secondary media.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out. So what came out in 1984? Obviously, Ghostbusters. That kind of ran the table. Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, Gremlins, Karate Kid, Police Academy, Footloose, Beverly Hills Cop. Jesus Christ! This movie
This movie had no hope. They should have delayed this thing. This movie had no hope whatsoever.
Beverly Hills Cop, Star Trek 3, Splash, Romancing the Stone, Terms of Endearment, Purple Rain, The Natural, Revenge of the Nerds, the original Red Dawn.
Oh, it did. Oh my God, that's
Terminator,
right.
Friday the 13th, the final chapter did 30, almost 33 million that year, which is a lot. The Last Starfighter came out that year. Yeah. Jesus, Scarface came out that year.
Oh yeah, Scarface. Yeah.
84 was a good year to go to the movies, man. Like holy crap.
Top Secret came out that year, which is another movie I really want to go into eventually. We might do that sometime in February. It might be a heavy comedy.
That's a ridiculous.
Let's see. Firestarter came out that year. That's a really good movie. Let's see. Night of the Comet came out that year. Starman came out that year. The Big Chill came out that year, which is that was one of the first adult movies, not adult, but I mean grown up films that I ever watched. Got really wrapped up in.
Let's see. I'm gonna look one up.
Rescue the Boys Are. Gorky Park came out that year. Cloak and Dagger is a great movie, filmed in San Antonio, by the way. I love that movie. Let's talk about that one eventually. This isn't even in the top 100 right now. So, The Right Stuff came out that year. Flamingo Kid, Christmas Story. Jesus Christ. Once Upon a Time in America. Chud. Another movie I want to talk about. Chud came out. Let's see. Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi. I don't know. That had to have been. No?
Jedi was 83.
That had to have been. You know what? Okay, here's what happened. I'm just looking at all the movies that were in theaters in 84. It was probably.
It might have still been in. I was about to say, was Star Wars, was Jedi still in theaters?
Yeah, because it says here that in the calendar year, Return of the Jedi made just under $4 million. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that was killing it then. Yeah.
But Purple Heart's a good war movie came out. Yeah, I'm not.
No. Day of the Dead was 1985, but yeah.
Yeah, this isn't even. It's not even the top 170. That's so disappointing. But yeah, I mean, It came out, oh my God, weekly. Let me see if I can break this down to kind of when the movie came out. When did I say this movie came out?
84.
I was hoping for a month. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Because I'm curious as to what came out. Don't go there. No, stop.
Well, this was Tom Selleck's kind of big break in the movies too. So not only was he competing with a lot of big titles, but
December 14th.
When was it?
December 14th.
This movie came out December 14th?
Yeah, 84.
Oh, okay.
Wow, so it came out on Christmas. So we go weekly. We're looking at, let's see. No, I don't want that.
When was Back to the Future in theaters? Because that was 85.
So December what? 84, you said?
Yeah, December 14th, 84.
Right.
So December 14th. So in theaters was already, Terminator had been out it came out October 26th. So it came out Halloween weekend. So Terminator was number one release in Terminator, then Oh God, You Devil, then Missing in Action, then Supergirl, then the Terminator again, then Beverly Hills Cop for 4 weeks. So yeah, this movie got swallowed up by a lot of stuff. And right before that, I mean, it's looking kind of in the fall area. We're talking like August on. Ghostbusters came out that summer, but it was still in there. Red Dawn, Ghostbusters again, then Terminator, then Supergirl, Terminator, Beverly Hills Cop. So yeah, it got kind of swallowed up.
Yeah.
It got swallowed up by a lot of stuff that was coming out right about.
Well, it doesn't help that this movie is kind of generic 80s action movie. There's nothing besides Gene Simmons and his portrayal of the villain. There's nothing that really stands out about it. Like I said, if you're just, if you're in the 80s, right, and you're going to the video store and you're in the sci-fi section, you see Blade Runner, you see Terminator, you see all of the other robot technological movies. This one just blends in with the crowd. There's nothing about this that's like, wow, that really stands out. It's very formulaic, and just because it's formulaic doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It just means it's very similar to a lot of other things. And
well, like I said, I think the thing that helps is the fact the star power you have in this movie. I'm like, because I could have said the same thing. You could put anybody in these roles and have the same movie, but I'm like, I think the thing that kind of helps it is the fact that it's Tom Selleck, it's Gene Simmons, it's Kirstie Alley, it's, you know what I mean. So that kind of gives it a little bit, but it doesn't, like, you don't look at something like, oh, that is Blade Runner, that is Ghostbusters, that's Terminator.
But see, here's the thing though. Tom Selleck at the time was a TV actor. Gene Simmons had never really acted before. Yeah, you have Kirstie Alley in a supporting role, but the guy that you have on the poster of the, I don't know what the cover of the movie looked like. I assume it's probably the image we're looking at now. But Tom Selleck was known for Magnum P.I. Yeah, he was a star, but you got to remember at that point in time, television stars were less than to the movie guys. That's why Tom Selleck wanted to get into the movies by doing this. And, it just, and I mean, Gene Simmons was just the front man of KISS. He's not the legend that he is now. So, kind of a rose-colored glasses kind of thing.
Yeah. One more small piece of trivia. You mentioned the Jetsons a couple of times, Jeremy. Did you realize that the doorbell at the house where the robot goes nuts and kills a couple of people and is threatening to kill the kid, the doorbell is actually the same door chime that is the Jetsons doorbell. They actually threw that in there as a little Easter egg, kind of a futuristic thing.
I wondered if that was something. I was like, I don't know. It's something. I was more engrossed in the fact that, oh shit, there's an infant and everybody gets shot by this robot. But I was like, something sounded a little weird about that. I was like, there's something there. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, there is definitely like everything that would be in the Jetsons kind of starts here. You know what I mean? It's like all the stuff that is part of the Jetsons' daily life is all the stuff that's being innovated in this movie, which I think is kind of funny. But that's all for the trivia. Probably a good place to start wrapping things up. I'll go to you first, Tex. Give me some final thoughts on Runaway.
Fun movie, good cast. Gene Simmons. This movie's worth watching alone just on his basis. Fun to look back on some of these 80s films. We've been doing a lot of them, but I'm glad we did this one. Like I said, I thought this was a first time watch for me, but once I got into it a little bit, I remembered it. It triggered a memory. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's worth 90 minutes of your time. It's free on Tubi. I mean, it ain't going to cost you anything but the time to sit down and enjoy it. So go check it out.
Jeremy, how about you, my friend? Final thoughts on Runaway.
Yeah, this was the first watch for me, and like I mentioned, I forgot to eat half of my dinner, so it caught my attention and it had me, and I don't know what it was. It was a fun movie. Yeah, it's free on Tubi, which apparently I discovered we have for some reason. So there, to answer your question, Frank, he asked me outside what other ones do you have? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't even know until today we had that apparently. So I'll have to start looking into that now. But I'm kind of glad I found this. It was a fun kind of like near future dystopian sci-fi romp. So yeah, it's if you've seen movies like I, Robot, Terminator, but I'm like, it's still fun, as campy as it may seem. It's worth seeing.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is, like I said, there was a wealth of quantity of movies, entertainment period that came out in the 80s. So it's easy for a lot of this stuff to kind of get lost. But this is one of kind of the hidden gems of what I think is one of the most intriguing and probably better decades of film is this movie. It is kind of interestingly prophetic about some of the things that would come in our daily lives over the course of the next 20 years. The iPhones, all the tech, the way that it would become so ingrained in our lives as it is today. This was kind of like their vision of what they thought it was going to look like if all this stuff kind of came forward. Now, granted, they're much smaller. We've managed to compact a lot of this tech, and we don't have big bulky things the way that they kind of do. We have floaters, we have drones. That's kind of cool. I mean, of all the things in that movie, you said you can have one of these things that I've been like, drones might be one of the cool things.
That was pretty damn close.
It was pretty close, but yeah, it's an interesting movie. I mean, Tom Selleck is Tom Selleck in this movie. He was like I said, the heartthrob of the 1980s. He was just doing heartthrob things. The movie's pretty well acted, considering that at this time acting wasn't really at this point in filmmaking, acting wasn't the priority. Thankfully, they have kind of fixed that. But the movie is fairly well acted. I mean, it's a fun movie. I get it. It's kind of a classic 80s actiony. Just sit back and enjoy. It's a bit of a time capsule movie. You know what I mean? The way they make films, the way they saw the future, it is a bit of a time capsule movie. It's interesting to go back and see. I like to go back and watch a lot of old news footage because it's interesting to me to see how people were reporting on things like the Kennedy assassination or 9/11 or whatever random thing, whatever significant thing that has happened over the course of history. It's interesting to go back and watch that kind of thing, just like it's interesting to go back and watch this movie. It's kind of an interesting view into filmmaking and what they saw, the future that is our present, what they thought it was going to look like. So it's pretty interesting in that way. But thanks to my amazing co-host for coming to hang out with us tonight. Starting with my hetero life mate, Jeremy. What do you got going on, my friend?
The stuff you see on my face. So this is starting to become the busy season. I was also in this god-awful heat for about 24 hours straight, so I was absolutely zonked. I managed to pull myself together and actually watch this movie before I got on here, so I was like, I don't know. I'm like, I have so much crap I still have to do. But so, I mean, if you see me a little less, that's why. I'm doing spooky stuff. And I don't know, I bug Frank to play Fortnite every once in a while because I've again ruined about 3 other people in my life with that game. So I hate that I've got this challenge I'm trying to do in that damn game, and it's just making me a happy camper. Texas Chainsaw got a patch, I think, early today, so that's probably worth checking out. Yeah, they I didn't read the patch notes yet, but they said it was sometime early today, so I gotta check that out. Something I'm actually going to say something to you, Tex, once we get off here. There was something that was a pretty deep cut about this game that I'm like, can I have a second opinion about that? It'll be interesting to talk about that.
Oh, we can talk chainsaw anytime you want, my friend. You know how to get over
it was a screenshot with Alexander Daddario, so I know you're already locked in.
Oh,
you're welcome. Right. We know why we watched that movie. That's pretty much it for me. Video games and spooky stuff. And I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to enjoy Frank having to take a fucking knee, and we're going to do some 90s shit. we can stop stroking the 80s for a minute.
Look, I picked some solid 90s movies. I mean,
you did.
I'll give you a hint of the next movie here in just a second.
I've got a list.
Usual Suspects coming up. We got Unforgiven, Reservoir Dogs. Yeah, so I mean, we've got a couple good ones, and even into the spooky month in October, where we start doing a little bit more of the scary stuff. There's even going to be a couple of 90s gems in there as well. So yeah, I made that conscious decision a long time ago. I was looking back at some of the movies, and I was like, we're doing a lot of 80s stuff. I probably should dip into the 90s a little bit and try to find some of those gems. No, I'm not going to run out.
Give it its credit.
We can review every 80s movies from now until the end of the universe, and we would still probably only make it about 10% through the number 80.
Hey, just because there was a lot doesn't mean it was good. You said it.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
This is a good one, though. This is a good one.
And the Shane from Lone Star State, our man Tex. What do you got going on, my friend?
Football, watching horror films, and talking on the internet when Frank does shows. Pretty much what my free time consists of these days. So obviously we've got Monday Night Saw coming up this week, so make sure you're here for that. I know Jeremy and I put in just a dog's age worth of work, just trying to prepare for this. We're not holding back. We're gonna, since the inmates are gonna run the asylum here on the channel for the next couple Mondays, we're gonna try to do it upright. You know what I mean? But yeah, be here for the next 3 Mondays, Monday Night Saw, and Wednesdays starting next week for football, right, Frank? Are we doing that, or is that a go?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, after week 1, we're going to start doing it every Wednesday. It's going to be the Harsh Truth Fantasy Football. Week 1 is coming up. It's going to be me, Tex, and probably a couple other people coming and going as the season progresses. But we're going to start doing that every Wednesday, talking some fantasy football, go over some of the big news lines of the week that was in football, and then going into all of our fantasy talk. We'll talk a little bit of shit about our particular leagues. We'll have some questions about some of the things that we think you should do with your rosters, some players that we think you guys should pick up. So that's something we're going to be doing every week, every Wednesday for the duration of the fantasy football season. So probably through week 17 up until the actual playoffs start. So you can expect us to do that for the rest of the calendar.
There's a lot. I mean, obviously, college football started this past weekend. My Aggies put a whooping on New Mexico, so I can't wait for them to win the SEC West and get that natty title already. But yeah, I mean, NFL starting and lots of good content from movies to football to whatever. I mean, so make sure you're here and tell your friends about us and get us to 500 so we can go save puppy dogs. So do what you got to do.
Right. Also,
now
don't
I'm
forget.
going to come to your house as John Wick and I might shoot you. Don't make me do it.
Okay, you two, if send your hate email to Grim Tuesday 23 on Yahoo. But and don't forget, we'll be back here. We'll be back here. Our next show will be on Thursday, where, as Jeremy said, we're going to be talking about The Matrix, the 1999 classic, baby. We're getting deep into the 90s this month. The 9th month is going to be the 90s. That was the theme. If I'd have thought about it ahead of time, this probably would have been a 90s movie today. But I had gotten really jacked up about doing this one, but it worked out pretty well because this is a cool movie. So join us on Thursday. Hopefully Lady Cora will be able to come back and join us for that. She's got some stuff going on tonight. She couldn't make it, but we're looking forward to having her back on Thursday while we talk about The Matrix, the 1999. I don't even know what you classify it as. Is it a techno classic? Is it a
kind of
thriller? I don't even know.
Kind of in the same vein as this movie. When you think about it,
similar. Yeah. Just several years later, and definitely a different approach to the kind of effect that technology can have on your life. You know what I mean? But And also, don't forget, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming on the channel over the course of the next like month and a half or so at least, because you're looking at, Monday Night Saw is going to be coming up with these two guys that you can see at the bottom of your screen right now. Then Tuesdays our usual reviews. Wednesdays will be football. Thursdays usual reviews. So like Monday through Thursday, there's going to be some pretty steady content on here. Hopefully that will hold up.
Yeah, we can annoy you every day of the week.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of content on the channel. So subscribe to us right now. Help share us out. Get us out there. Get us out to your friends. So that we can get to the 500 subscriber mark and we can do the charity stream for the Abandoned Pet Project. Thanks to everybody who voted in the poll. Let's see. It says 12 of you voted in the poll. I'll go ahead and end it now. 75% of you thought that Runaway was great, even though I could not spell think apparently in the poll. 75% of you thought it was great. 60% of you thought it was meh. And of course, Casey came in for just a minute and voted straight poop because he has nothing better to do than to thirst on our stream and try to chase our clout. But thanks to all of you who voted. We very much appreciate it. And we will see you guys back here on Thursday for The Matrix. Until such time, we'll see you then.
Tom Selleck's mustache could have kicked Gene Simmons' ass without him even being there. He could have left off of his face and just murdered him, pretty easily.
It's just like Chuck Norris. He's got a fist under there. That's what it is.
That's what I was just thinking. Chuck Norris from Family Guy. I was just thinking like Tom Selleck could have walked in there and a fist would have come out of his mustache, punched the bad guy, knocked him out.